Today we're going to use the knowledge we gained about fractions in the last few days in order to solve equations like we did with the decimals. So we're going to look at the side with the variable, and we're going to look at our constant. It's being subtracted, so we are going to do the opposite and add 3/7 to both sides. And now we do this horizontally because we just learned how to add fractions horizontally, so it's a little bit easier to keep doing the same form. Now, because we're adding to each side to undo the subtraction, that is the addition property of equality. We talked about that with the decimals. Negative 3/7, positive 3/7 are opposite, so they cancel because they equal 0. We bring our x down, and then we have 5 plus 3 over 7. So we have 5 plus 3 over 7, which is 8/7. Or, if we change that to a mixed number, 7 goes into 8 one time. We have a remainder of 1 over our outside number of 7. So 1 and 1/7. Okay, next problem. Side with our variable, look at the constant. Because the constant has no visible sign in front of it, we know it's being added to r. So the opposite of adding 4/9 to r is subtracting 4/9. So because we are subtracting to undo addition, we are using the subtraction property of equality. Okay, so these 4/9 cancel because one's positive and one's negative, which equals 0, and we're left with just r. Now we have negative 1/2 minus 4/9. Now we have to find a common denominator. So let's think about this. We have, I'm sorry, not 4. We have 2, and that can be 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, and 18. And then we have 9, which goes into 18. So we have a common denominator of 18. Now I have to think what times 2 gets me 18? 9. So I multiply the 2 by 9, and I have to multiply the 1 by 9. Then what times 9 gets me to 18? 2. So I multiply the 9 by 2 and the 4 by 2. Now we need to multiply to get our equivalent fractions. Now look at this and make sure you remember there is a negative right there. So it's not just 9/18 when we do 1 times 9 and 2 times 9. We have to put a negative there. And then there's a negative in there. So minus 4 times 2 is 8, 9 times 2 is 18. So it's not 9 minus 8, it's negative 9 minus 8. So we take the absolute value of both, which is 9 and 8, and add them together and get 17, and then remember our sign. So we have negative 17 over 18. Okay. Solve, write each answer in simplest form. I don't know why they give you the same directions over and over again. This time, we have a coefficient and a variable, so we know those are being multiplied together. The opposite of multiplication is division. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of the coefficient, which is 3/8. Okay, so we're going to multiply 3/8 by 8/3, and we're going to multiply 1/4 by 8/3. Then we look across. 4 goes into 4 one time. 4 goes into 8 two times. And then we can multiply our numerators. 1 times 2 is 2. 1 times 3 is 3. So if you had like 1/4 x equals 6, we would look and see there's a coefficient multiplied by a variable. So we multiply both sides by the reciprocal of the coefficient. So we would have 1/4 x times 4 over 1 equals 6 over 1, because we make that a fraction, times 4 over 1. And these would cancel, and we would get x equals 24 over 1. or just 24. Okay? Now, we are going to be looking at this problem. The 4 and the y has a coefficient multiplied by a variable, so we know we're multiplying. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. So we're using the multiplicative inverse property because we are going to be multiplying by the reciprocal of 4. Okay? So the reciprocal of 4 can be a fraction of 4 over 1. So the reciprocal is 1/4. So look over at this problem. We have 1/4 y, or sorry, 4y times 1/4, and then equals 8/9 times 1/4. So these cancel, leaving us with just y, and then we look across. We have 4 and 8. 4 goes into both of those. 4 goes into 4 one time, and 8 twice. 9 and 1, nothing goes in but 1. So we have 2 times 1, which is 2, and 9 times 1, which is 9. The amount of copper and brass is 3/4 of the total weight. If a sample contains 4 1/5 ounces of copper, what is the total weight of the sample? Okay, so we're going to write an equation letting W represent the total weight of the sample. So the amount of copper and brass is 3/4 of the total weight. We don't know what the total weight is, but it said we're going to let W represent that. So this would be W, and of means multiplication. So that's where they got 3/4 W, the coefficient multiplied by the variable. If a sample contains 4/5 ounces of copper, what is the total weight of the sample? That's where they got the equals 4 1/5. So whatever we put in for the weight, when we multiply it by 3/4, we should get 4 1/5. So we have a coefficient multiplied by a variable, and that means we're going to be dividing to undo. But when we divide fractions, we end up multiplying by the reciprocal. So we're going to multiply by the reciprocal of 3/4. Okay, the reciprocal of 3/4 is 4 over 3 because we flipped it over. So we have times 4 over 3, and we're going to do that to both sides. Okay, now before we can do that, we need to change our mixed number into an improper fraction, which they've done part of it for us. But I believe they forgot that it's 4 times 5 is 20 plus 1 is 21 over 5. So these cancel, leaving us with just W. And then we look diagonally. 1 is the only number that goes into 4 and 5, so those stay. And then 3 can also go into 21. So 3 divided by 3 is 1. 21 divided by 3 is 7. And then we multiply straight across. 7 times 4 is 28. 5 times 1 is 5, or we do division. 5 goes into 28 5 times. 5 times 5 is 25. Subtract and get 3. That's your numerator, and your divisor is 5. So it's 5 3/5. So the sample weighs 5 3/5 ounces. Okay, go ahead and do your check it out. Last chapter, make sure you get ready for your test.